Today we want to talk about self-poisoning. I heard a beautiful quote the other day that resentment is poison and it destroys the container that it holds. And then in thinking about that, I realized that there's so many things that are poison for us. And criticism is a poison, and humility and appreciation is a nectar. It nourishes us. This morning we were giving class, and a devotee was saying, but I see so-called advanced devotees doing things they shouldn't do. How do I deal with that? And I said, this is the carrot. Maya's putting that carrot in front of you to get you to focus on that, to focus on what they're doing wrong. And by focusing on that, you will poison yourself. Even though they're doing something wrong, I'm not saying they're not doing something wrong, but by focusing on what they're doing, you end up poisoning yourself. It ends up harming you. It harms the container that's housing the criticism. So you think, but the criticism is valid, it's just. Yeah, but what's the result of that criticism? You give up the association of devotees because you don't want to associate with them because they're so bad. Or you end up telling everybody how bad they are, and instead of talking about Krishna's philosophy, his Leela, you're talking about how bad his devotees are. That's where it goes. So some of you may say, but yes, devotees do things wrong and we have to discuss that. But that's a different thing. That's not really criticism. That's just rectifying a situation. But there are a lot of situations we're not in charge of rectifying. We cannot rectify. We're just talking about it because it upsets us. And we can't do anything. And talking about it is not helping. Talking about it is only making it worse. It's just discouraging us. And you could be utilizing that time for doing something productive and positive. That's the point. So when we don't do that, and then we get involved in negative things, whatever it is, resentment, anger, criticism, envy, and so forth, these are all very toxic things. And they're destroying us. Even on the physical level, they're destroying. What to speak of the spiritual level. So this is really, really important. Just because something is the way it is doesn't mean we're meant to dwell on it. Just because something is wrong doesn't mean we're meant to dwell on it. Just because somebody did something wrong doesn't mean we're meant to dwell on it. It could be extremely toxic for us and extremely destructive. And there's something in our psychology that seems to say, but if it is wrong or if it is unjust, it's okay to meditate on it. And that's not true, because that meditation could be destructive. It could totally destroy you. And the last thing I want to say is, often the very criticisms that we levy, that we place upon others, end up coming back and infesting our own heart. Boomerang effect. And as many of you know, and as many writers and teachers have said, what the fault you see, it's only seeing yourself in that person. So either you see yourself in that person, or by discussing that fault comes back and you start doing the same thing that you've been criticizing this other person of doing. So it's really not part of Vaishnavism to be down on people. Vaishnavism means I think I'm lower and I respect others and I appreciate what others are doing. I'm not always looking what they're doing wrong, why they're doing it wrong, trying to psychoanalyze them, say, I understand why he does that. That's not Vaishnavism. That's what ordinary people do. And so we have to be very careful not to descend into this level of being ordinary, because devotees are not meant to be ordinary. They're meant to be transcendental, at least sattvic. So if we descend into this realm of ordinary, how are we going to become Krishna conscious? Krishna consciousness is not an ordinary activity, neither is it meant for ordinary people. So that's something to meditate on. That's the problem. This is not meant for ordinary people or ordinary activities, and we don't want to be ordinary. Otherwise, we'll self-intoxicate. We'll intoxicate, not in the sense of affecting our mind, so to speak, but just intoxicate ourselves spiritually. Toxicate. Hare Krishna.